Hello everyone. Let us talk about storytelling and storyboarding. At the end of the day, an Excel model is just a bunch of formulas, and then it is about the complexity of the formulas and the code, the scenarios that you have built in that matters. But when it comes to PowerPoint, aesthetics do matter. The narrative, the story does matter. It is not just about writing a complex formula and then copying the table, bringing it back to PowerPoint, but the way that you present is super important. And that is the reason so far we have focused on learning the tips and the tricks, working with shapes, icons, images, etc. So I want to talk a little bit about how storytelling and storyboarding is used. In consulting, we usually refer to this as data storytelling. So how to present a story using data. Here's the thing. Most of us are not naturally good at storytelling. And think about why. If you think of mathematics is not really something that was paired in a story format. And that's the problem, right? Today we are expected to present a story which has a lot of data in it. So what we end up doing is we end up creating a chart or a graph, but then we don't really think about how we are going to present it. We only think about getting the chart made and making it dynamic and making sure all the numbers are correct. The other challenge is that everybody knows how to create a chart. In fact, with tools like Power BI, it has become even more simpler to create a nice looking dynamic chart. But the problem is that while technology has made it easier for us to create a chart, we are not quite sure what the story is. Why are we even doing it in the first place? And the amount of data we have today is much more and is continuing to increase compared to what we had previously. So that's the conundrum, right? Analytics roles typically do not have a formal training in presentation. In fact, I'm not even sure how many places you have a formal training in presentation. We focus on the data, not so much on the storytelling side of it. And that's the thing, right? Non-technical background people are asked to put a technical hat and communicate using data. That becomes a challenge. I'm sure many of you would have seen the 5 W's and the 1 H, which talk about the who, where, what, when, why, and the how. So I will give you one step more than that. Think about what action you want the users to take. For example, if I'm presenting something end of the quarter to a client, ideally, what is it that I would like to happen? Would I want them to ask me some questions? Would I want them to look at my actionable points and then do that correction in the organization? If I'm presenting to a client talking about how to launch a new product in the market, would I like them to act on it then and there? At the end of the day, we want them to take action on what we are presenting. So we have to be very clear and conscious of what we want. It shouldn't be that we are presenting all the data in a way that, hey, this is what we have found. Now you decide what you want to do. Most of the time, that would not really be what you want, because then you're not really controlling the audience. You have to control the audience in a smart way. The audience should feel that they have the choice, but at the end of the day, you also know what you want them to decide, isn't it? For example, if you come up with a pricing strategy and you say that I feel the price should increase, you've already made up your mind because you have done the analysis, you have done the research, you know it should increase. But then the client, if you say that, hey, I know there has to be an increase, then they don't have a choice. There's nothing to talk about. Then when you say there's an increase, there has to be some thought starter. There has to be some points where the client can maybe validate with you, maybe cross-question you, and then accordingly have the confidence that this is the right decision. So these thought starters then has been mentioned on this slide. Things like change, collaborate, implement, influence, invest. I think these are great starters for you as the presenter when you're creating slides to try and understand what is the theme and what is the tone of the presentation. For example, let's say you want to defend your analysis. You've done the research, you came up with some numbers which are not something the client is going to be happy about. Maybe people are leaving the company because they're not happy with the organization culture, but you have to defend it. You have to realize that when you present it, the client may not be super happy about it. It's not a fun topic to talk about attrition, right? But at the same time, when you know that that is the tonality, that's the tone of your presentation, it will really help you create a presentation accordingly. Also think about the mode of communication. Now, this was not really a problem before because most of these presentations would be live presentations. But now we are looking at something sent over an email or presented over a Zoom call. Now, the amount of control that I have in a live presentation is massive. I can pivot, I can modify, I can skip slides. And depending on how the audience is reacting to my presentation, I can take a decision. But the level of detail needed is low because I don't need to have everything presented on the slide because I have the ability of showing data as and when required. On the other hand, when you're sending something on an email or you're presenting on Zoom, the level of control to some extent decreases, right? Especially when you're sending it over an email. So if you send somebody a PowerPoint, you can't really control the way they view it. What if they go to the last slide and see it first before coming to the first one? That means that the level of detail required is high. You really need to control the user journey really well. And of course, the amount of control is lower, so you have to keep that in mind. So the storyboarding and the storytelling is really important. And usually what we always do, and what I would suggest to you, is to go low tech. It's very nice and fancy to talk about online tools and cloud-based applications, and you should use them fully because they are wonderful. But at the end of the day, the simplest and the most practical things would be to make post-it notes. Have a lot of post-it notes because it's non-linear. You're now able to put all your thoughts on it without worrying too much about whether it follows sequence, and then you can always rearrange it later. In fact, this is one website that I came across. While storyboarding originally started with movies and studios and animation, Walt Disney was one of the first pioneers of storyboarding. I think there are a lot of lessons that we can borrow into our own slides as well. So the fact that you first create your entire flow, all the sections, and then you rearrange and realize whether you're maybe prioritizing one section too much and under prioritizing another one. At the end of the day, there isn't a checklist that you can follow. It depends on a lot of factors. You have to do a lot of research. But then I would strongly suggest that you read good articles, maybe on Harvard Business Review and on other good editorials and publications about how to present, how to focus on a narrative, how to focus on the data storytelling side of it. This is really a blend of the technical and the software aspect, the stakeholder management side of it. And this is where it's not very objective. For example, if you say, hey, how do I create an animation? I can give you a checklist telling you how to do it. But something like this is best learned by a lot of reading. And again, to reinforce what I have said umpteen times in this course, please read a lot of these consulting reports that you find. And I've already shown you how you can find them. By reading them, there is so much learning that will come to you. The way data is presented, the way the subtitle is written so that it captures your attention, the way infographics are used to break the monotony of a lot of text, right? And it's just so much learning created by some of the smartest people out there, which is available to you for free. So why would you want to learn from anywhere else, right? So please make sure to do that. And I don't think any amount of reading is enough. I think we constantly have to keep on reading more and more because there's just so much content out there. And with technology especially, if you're in the area of technology, we know how quickly it changes and matures. So it's really important to be at the top. Keep on reading a lot. Keep on experimenting. Don't be in that habit of creating the same presentation over and over again. And finally, to take feedback. Be open to feedback. It's one thing to say to a client, I would like your feedback. It's another thing to really be open to it. When you're honest and open to feedback, that is probably the best learning you will have. Because especially when you're dealing with senior folks, the clarity of their feedback will really help you become better. And you have to be very conscious of taking that feedback constructively and ensuring that you work on it.